Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Thomasine Dolan, and I work for Material Innovation Initiative as the Material Innovation Director. Today, I'm lucky to have three panelists with me, three speakers, to talk about next-gen fur. This particular webinar is called The Critical Timing of Next-Gen Fur, and hopefully you'll understand why as we get into the topic. Before I get into introducing our panelists and the actual content for the day, I just wanted to let you know that MII recently published the What Makes Fur Fur report. It's available on our website. It's a free download, and in it you'll find a lot of useful information, both from a scientific point of view, environmental, consumer habits, economics of the fur trade, etc. You'll also find a section on innovators currently working in this space. We hope that this report, again, which is on our website, is useful and inspiring to people to use as a reference for scientists, entrepreneurs, investors, and brands. And before I introduce our panelists, I just want to offer a few highlights from the report because it'll give context to the discussion we're about to have. According to the US Census, fur production is down. In 2017, there were 236 mink farms, and by 2022, they're down to 110. So it's less than 50%. The US mink trade has gone from $123 million in 2017, and it's now currently at about 39 million. That was in 2022, actually. The other commonly used animals for fur are foxes, rabbits, and raccoon dogs. 95% of fur comes from factory farmed animals. However, fur trapping still exists, and approximately 5 million animals are still killed this way for the fur industry. And fur bans. There's a lot happening in fur bans. 20 countries have banned fur farming, the vast majority being in the EU. Europe was the world's second largest producer of fur after China. The European Commission is considering a ban on all fur farming and the sale of fur products, and this is after 1.7 million Europeans signed a petition calling for an EU-wide ban on fur production. They were citing public health, the environment, and animal welfare as the main reasons. The response is due in March of 2025. And beginning this year, 2024, London Fashion Week is fur-free. London is the second major fashion week to make this commitment, with Copenhagen going first in 2022. And then lastly, about fur bans, 1,500 global brands have pledged not to use or sell animal fur. So that's kind of amazing. But yet we have this increase in popularity in fur right now. We see it all over the fashion pages and the runways. Mostly they're faux furs, but not all. So anyway, now I'd like to introduce our guests. So I'm going to start with Arnaud Brunois. He is the Sustainability and Communication Manager at Ecopel. Thank you, Arnaud.
Hello.
Ecopel, a little bit about Ecopel. It was founded in 2004, and they're a leader in high-quality animal fur replicas. Ecopel's recent internal investments have focused on innovating more sustainable materials. This is evidenced by their release of Kobo New Generation, which is a 100% bio-based fur, and more recently, Fleur, which is plant-based. As the Sustainability and Communication Manager, Arnaud's mission is to create strategies to communicate positive environmental impacts of sustainable next-gen furs in fashion. Prior to joining Ecopel, Arnaud worked for a nonprofit dedicated to finding alternatives to animal testing. Martin Stubler is the co-founder of BioFluff. BioFluff is a biomaterials company that has created 100% plant-based and biodegradable materials to replace animal materials and synthetic fur. Their flagship product is Savillon. Martin's journey to create a plant-based fur was a natural trajectory for him, considering while at uni in Vienna, he studied agriculture and bioeconomics, and then went on to do master's work in biotechnology and chemical engineering at Cornell. Interestingly, while he was working for MycoWorks, he was in a tannery. The pandemic struck, got stuck in the tannery, but he also noticed that this tannery was working on animal fur as well. And I think he had an epiphany or an intersection of his studies with plants and fur working at the same place that possibly led to the idea, which he launched BioFluff in 2022. And lastly, we have Christian Tubito. He's the director of the Caring Material Innovation Lab. In his role as director, Christian supports the integration and implementation of sustainable and innovative solutions that work with the collections and supply chains of Kering's houses. He has over 15 years of experience in the field of material innovation, managing consultancies, supporting services for public agencies, and conducting international research and innovation projects funded by the EU for innovating the textile industry. All the maisons under Kering are fur-free, and they are Alexander McQueen, Balenciaga, Bottega Veneta, Brioni, Gucci, and Saint Laurent. Well, thank you. Okay, so I apologize to everyone. The audience, I have a bit of laryngitis, so I hope this isn't too troubling for your ears. So anyway, I want to start with fur bans. I think that fur bans could be considered a trigger or a catalyst for a lot of innovation. Anytime something is taken away from us, whether the government regulates something, or right now, we see sustainability regulations coming from government, it's creating a lot of innovation with fiber. And I feel that with fur bans, there's the potential for it to create a lot of innovation for recreating fur. And so there was big news. It was really big news in 2018 when Gucci publicly banned fur. They had internally, I believe they had started prior to that, possibly in 2017, but by the time the public was aware of it, it was pretty big news for Gucci to ban fur. And then Kering went fur-free in 2021. Now, Arnaud, my question to you is, when this sort of major news is announced, did it reignite your internal activist at Ecopel? Did you feel, because obviously Ecopel was already making synthetic furs, but I know that you have a more sustainability minded approach to things. And with all this happening, what was your reaction?
When I hear such an amazing news, like Kering is no longer going to use fur, it's a personal victory for sure, because I've been personally fighting against the fur trade since when I'm a teenager. So it's such a celebration, even here, when we heard that. It was during Première Vision. And it's really, you can only be proud to work with such a great partner. And then after comes the sort of pressure that comes on your shoulder, because we know also that for fake fur, we have some environmental issues that we have to work on, and that's what we've been doing with Kering. So it's a great joy, and then it's okay, we have to work and we have to do better, to improve, to reduce our environmental impact in order to be even a better partner for Kering and all the luxury brands working with us.
Christian, when that news came out, did that become an immediate priority for the innovation lab? Is like to find innovators or?
Yeah, for sure. In order not just to find innovator, but also to improve a little bit of some qualities and some styles of fur, because with some materials, the quality is not properly at the level that we are looking for, basically. And the funny stuff that was not so funny, we had a lot of pressure too, but you have to know that we start also a research, because after 1 year from the fur-free announcement, we decide a phase out for the mod acrylic usage. So by 2025, so from next year, Kering brands will not use any more mod acrylic fibers in their products. And as you can imagine, the mod acrylics is the only fiber that currently is able to mimic or see the long hair fur effect, for example, fox effects or something like that. So it was a challenge, take this decision, because the mod acrylic has a lot of problem. It's not recyclable. He uses components that is the same one that is used in PVC, so vinyl chloride. So it means that PVC is banned from Kering products. So it means that also mod acrylic should be not used anymore. And so we put a lot of more pressure also to Ecopel and other manufacturers in order to push a little bit other fibers, to have the same application and the same style and effects of and look and feel of the modacrylic one. So yes, it's fiber fur became, or next gen fur became a hot topic for us, for sure.
Now, I'm glad you brought up modacrylic. I know that is, that's one of the key ingredients for a lot of the best looking faux furs. Yeah, unfortunately, it's beautiful, but it's very harmful. So that's amazing that Kering made that pledge to not use that. So that's very good. I wanted to talk about how BioFluff found Kering, or Kering found BioFluff. I wanted to ask, actually, how did BioFluff come on your radar screen, or did Martin approach you?
No, indeed, we found my previous innovation manager at Material Innovation Lab found them. It was at the beginning, I guess, Martin. So they come to us in our meeting with I think the first generation of their material. And indeed, it was quite ugly. We said, honestly, and we say, okay, it's interesting in innovation. It sounds super cool, but the outcome is not at the right level at all for a fiber fur application. And we said, okay, I don't think we will have the opportunity to work with them. But after a few months, they come back again with a new development, and we find it very interesting because they improve in a very short times a lot. And we say, okay, they are the right partner to work with because they are able to really improve in a so short time. And so we say, let's run a pilot project with them. And so we start a collaboration with Martin, right, Martin?
Yes, I still remember this very first meeting. It was the first showing of any BioFluff material ever, and I came with this very small swatch in a brown paper bag, and I was putting it on the table and showing it around. It was very early. It was, I believe, within the first 2 or 3 months after starting BioFluff. So yeah, we've come a long way since then, and there's still so much way to go because yes, now with modacrylic fibers being phased out more and more, and Kering is leading here the charge, we need more new technologies to really replace the haptics and the feeling of modacrylic fur fibers. But I want to just quickly circle back to your original question, Thomasine. I'm personally super happy about fur bans. I think it's a victory. I think we're standing here on the shoulders of giants, all the animal activists that made this happen over the past couple of decades. So I wouldn't be here today. Probably this entire panel would not happen if not thousands and hundreds and thousands of people would vote against animal fur and be vocal and really trigger change.
Yeah, no, interestingly and happily, the consumers are there for it. But you just have to make really pretty stuff. You and Capel need to make really beautiful materials because people still want fur, right? They don't care that it's from an animal. They just want this fluffy, beautiful, magical thing that is, it's just fantasy. It's so novelty, and so it's about creating that. But luckily, the animal's not needed with innovators like you and Capel. I wanted to ask about exclusivity. Christian, did you require exclusivity when you started working with BioFluff? Did you want them to be exclusive?
No, usually as Material Innovation Lab, we don't talk about exclusivity with the innovators because we want, our main aim is also to push a little bit the industry, and this innovation to scale up quickly, because we think the positive impact, environmental impact is it's very important. So in order to run the different pilots projects, we don't ask for exclusivity. That is usually a barrier, I would say, in order to progress rapidly. So when usually we work in triangulation with innovators, manufacturer, and our departments, and we don't ask for exclusivity to anyone. We try to protect as much as possible the IP of the technology that is in the end of the innovators. And then if the manufacturer or the innovator itself want to propose the results that we achieved through a specific pilot to other brands or companies, they are free to do that, because it's a matter of also to scale up. I mean, as even if Kering Group is a big group in the luxury, but we are able with our demand of materials or products to scale up an innovation. It's necessary that a lot of other brands and the industry itself, push an innovation. So for this reason, we don't discuss about exclusivity, at least if the results are interesting for a specific brand, then it's the brands that discuss with the innovator or the manufacturer about exclusivity.
I see. That's brilliant. I love that you're trying to build the industry and not, that's great. This question is for Arnaud and Martin. Because of the fur bans, how have you seen this affect your business from the perspective of Martin investors or Arnaud brands or anything? How have you, with so much happening, what have you seen other additional interest?
I would say it's not much the fur bans for us that is good for the business of fur. It's more the commitment, the announcement of big brands and luxury groups, because fur bans, a brand that wants to source fur will always find a country where they can buy fur. So for us, it's more powerful when a luxury conglomerate like Kering make an announcement, because other brands will follow, and it will be good also, of course, for business and for the sustainability developments. But I would say yes, more the brands, the announcement of brands, and a little bit less of the fur bands.
And Martin, how about you? Did it pique investors' interest when, with so much happening in that space, with brands, literally brands saying we're not going to use fur?
Yeah, definitely. From a fundraising, we are a startup, so we have to fundraise to make it through different stages of our development. And having fur bans, for example, like the New York and the California fur ban announced last spring, helped us tremendously from an investor and investment perspective. But as Arnaud was saying, it's like we don't really see the impact yet on a day-to-day basis, because there are so many other factors affecting why people want to use fur right now. So I would say it's a multi-factor system, and overall the entire system is growing with the biomaterials market as a whole. So there's more interest now in all sorts of materials, be it alternatives to leather, alternatives to fur, alternatives to wool, and this just the rising sea raises all the ships, I believe.
Yeah, well, I think with so much focus on sustainability, just in general, and how to make materials more sustainably. So, yeah, I want to move on to, well, actually to backtrack a little bit to the manufacturing conversation we had just a few minutes ago, that talking about manufacturing partners. So EcoPel, you have your infrastructure with manufacturers. And so when Kering works with EcoPel, Kering, you need to approve of their factories, I suppose, especially now I'm speaking more to their more sustainable products at EcoPel right now. Do you look at their manufacturing arms or does
Yeah, see, sure. We was very happy, for example, when EcoPel decided to acquire some European companies, so facilities, I would say, and because we can have a more open and direct discussion with the manufacturers that are based in EU rather than in Asia. And you should not forget also that even if EcoPel is a very innovative manufacturers, we can put in touch them with other innovations that are, for example, related to dyeing process. And for example, it's a long project that I think now Arnaud is 2 years and a half or 3 years that we are trying, more, that we are trying to use a waterless dyeing technology in order to be applied on recycled polyester fiber fur. So it's a quite innovative proposal that we made to this innovator, that is Daiko. And we start this long journey in order to achieve the right quality, the right color in an easy way. And also for the innovator itself, that is Daiko, and the current facilities in Europe is Circotex. It was challenging for them too, because we changed the material. So changing from a fabric, woven fabric, to a knitted fabric, and also a fiber fur was quite challenging in order to find the right formulation to make the processing work. And it's still in process, but we are very happy for the results that we are achieving. Yeah. But for sure, the facilities in Europe of Ecopel, the fact that their attitude to innovation is very key. Sometimes we are not able to work with manufacturers for their attitude to innovation. They have no idea what it means to work with innovation. Right, Arnaud?
It's all about the mindset. Really, it's about the mindset. We all agree, we all have the same vision. Then, of course, we have many, many challenges. We know about this project. We started like maybe 3-4 years ago, but the mindset is essential. And regarding the manufacturing process, of course, a big part is still happening in China, but brands and luxury groups are welcome to visit. We have frequent audit. And for the future, we are going to regionalize more and more with our 3 European affiliated mills. So it's easier for Christian and all the Kering team, for instance, to come and visit.
Yeah. And Martin, what about you with your manufacturing partners? Because I believe one of the reasons, well, there are many reasons, but one of which that you were able to move so quickly, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is that you started in a factory, right? You started in a manufacturing facility. So most people start in a kitchen, and you were already on site at a factory. So using the actual equipment. So therefore you didn't have that worry of like, I hope this works in here. So I think that, but then you work with someone like Kering, and so how does that square up? Because you have your partner, Kering has their partners. What was that like?
So I want to take it one step back. Before starting BioFluff, I worked in the alternative leather space. So I was with a very famous and successful alternative leather company. And one of the key takeaways that I've learned from there was really, if you want to work with luxury brands, it has to be a European-made material. And we made our plans accordingly. So Savian, our latest luxury fur material, is produced entirely in Europe. Material is sourced in Europe, and the entire process is happening in Italy. It's an entirely Italy-made product. And to come back to your question, from a manufacturing standpoint, yes, it makes sense to start off in a factory already, and not in a kitchen, because every thought I had at the beginning was, how can we overcome scaling challenges? My last job at the alternative leather company was to scale a process from an early pilot scale to an industrial scale. And I thought to myself, wow, how can I never ever have to scale a process like this? Because it's so hard. It's really a lot of work. So
in that factory, and I want to come back to you, Christian, but in that factory, do they have like a small pilot lab area where you can work out things? Or because I know to do production runs at a factory, it's like hundreds of yards or hundreds of meters of things have to go through the machines before, you can't just do a test. It's like a big deal. So do they have small equipment, a room where it's like a pilot lab inside of the factory, for instance?
yes, exactly.
Okay.
Industrial equipment requires hundreds of kilograms of raw material that have to go into a single production run. So for us as a startup, it was key to find and identify manufacturing partners that had pilot capabilities.
Okay, got you. And then Christian, so here you're starting to work with this innovator. It's not one of your factories or your manufacturers. So what does Kering do? Do you visit it, or do you try to bring BioFluff over to yours, or what happens?
from now, I mean, until now, we collaborate with BioFluff, and we totally trust in their manufacturing facilities. As Martin already said, they are based in Italy, so we know them. Some of them are part already of our supply chain, for example. So for now, there is not any issues or compliance for that, you know. So it's sometimes, for example, with some innovators, we ask them to work with the specific manufacturers, for example, like we are doing for Spiber. I don't know, that is another fiber that we are using also in the fiber for application with specific manufacturer, because we want to receive a very specific technical feedback. In fact, one of our key points sometimes, and we done it also with BioFluff, is provide a target material in order to address, you know, an R&D effort on a specific direction, because we are talking about fiber fur, so it's a specific kind of textile, so they can take many directions. So for us, it's important to say, okay, let's try to understand the potentials of this technology and let's associate a specific target material. In that way, you know, we are able to also understand, compare the results and so on, because sometimes it's very difficult also to understand a result or to evaluate the results from a pilot project because there are not comparable other materials. So we try to create a first step of comparison, I would say. And with the manufacturers, of course, it's key then to provide, to receive from them a technical feedback and a business perspective or commercial feedback, because sometimes, not in the case of BioFluff, sometimes the innovation is not viable at industrial level for business reason, commercial reason. So we need to receive also this feedback, because at the end is the manufacturers that invest in innovation, you know, or have to buy a fibers to produce a specific product. So we need, is key their technical and business feedback.
Yeah, no, that's incredible that you give target swatches when working with someone to tell them what you're looking for.
Yeah, you can ask to Martin when we saw the first samples that they provide to us, you know, the small swatches, and we said, okay, our target indeed should be this one, and we said, okay, I need a bit of time to achieve it. It was so funny, that meeting at the same time.
Yeah,
Right, Martin?
yeah, it is very helpful to have a sample swatch to where we're going. But when I first saw the swatch, I was like, all right, I'll be back in a year. But then we were back after 3 months, and we got quite far in that time. So having a
Yeah.
target always helps.
Well, so that's the perfect cue, because I was just about to ask you about some of the challenges of getting to Savion. So leading up to Savion, you know, but more specifically, not so much about what you want it to look like, because that's hugely important, obviously the visuals, but also, the feedstocks, the inputs, the equipment, you have the right staff, the people, the testing. So can you talk about any of those challenges?
So Savion is our material brand. The company is called BioFluff. Our first luxury material is called Savion. And yeah, all of our plant-based fur know-how went into creating this luxury material. The goal here is really to inspire creatives and to inspire brands to use a completely new material that has not been available on the market in a way that it is now with Savion.
So, but again, back to like some of those, because again, you're using a plant-based, it's agriculture, basically agricultural waste, or, I'm not even sure how it's evolved at this point, but for all those iterations, having like the constant flow and the consistency, and having, so that all your inputs are consistent time after time, so that is no guess. Did that ever become a problem, or did it all just move pretty fluidly?
I wouldn't call it fluently, but we understood from the outset that showing consistent material quality is key when working with any commercial partner. So we put rules and let's say processes in place from the beginning to have always the right amount of raw material, to blend the right amount of raw material, to really provide consistency for the final plant-based fur.
Arnaud, I wanted to talk a little bit about your new products, New Generation and Fleur. And those are your two most bio-based products, yes?
One is bio-based and one is pure vegetal fiber.
Right. So if you could tell us, so new generation, when did that come out? The
Actually,
bio-based one?
Yeah, we launched 5 years ago a fur named Koba, and it was partially bio-based. It contained 37% corn ingredients, and it was really the beginning of a new chapter for us at EcoPerl. But quickly enough, some brands were telling us, to my despair, actually, oh, it's only 37%. It's not so good, and we realized that we need to be faster to reach a higher portion of plant-based in the fur. So that's why we call it new generation, of course. Now there is a great advancement in the creation of a bio-based fiber. It's really fascinating, and I have been able to source a 100% bio-based fiber. So we have tried, the result was not so good, and we are trying again with a new fiber. And really the idea was like, it's a journey. We hear that all the time. Sustainability is a journey, but for me, for us, was really true. The first generation Koba was welcomed positively, but we realized it was not enough. And the other option is not bio-based. It's a plant fiber that we have blended with cotton, and we managed to create a very nice looking fur, more like mohair, I would say, more like shearling. And for us, it's also important we promote this as a new vision, but we also have to educate a little bit more the clients, the brands working with us, because all these new bio-based, plant-based fur, they are very new. In my opinion, today they cannot replace conventional synthetic fur because it doesn't look like mink or fox. And we still need to offer an alternative so brands will not go back to real fur. So this is where we are today.
And so is Fleur still in R&D?
No, it's already available.
Oh,
We are going to show a bigger line in July for Première Vision, the most important professional fair in textile. So brands can already start to use it, start to try it and see if they like it. They just have to be comfortable with this different touch, the different feeling. It's really a new approach to fur, but we want it to be on the next fashion shows.
yeah, that's very exciting. And so with what?
It is exciting.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you about Savion, Martin. So actually I want to talk about color too. So many things we still need to talk about. Go ahead.
Before you ask me that question, I don't want to derail the general conversation, but there's a question in the chat that I would like to address.
Oh, please. Yeah, I saw them too. Please go ahead.
It's probably from another early stage innovator, and for every early stage company, I have the same advice. Look at scaling, look at the machinery you will need, look at the facilities you will need, and really early anticipate how your process will integrate into existing supply chains. That's a really big challenge. Even if we produce a very innovative new material, if it doesn't connect, if it doesn't like plug and play with current supply chains, it's so hard to work with brand partners. And my second advice here is find brand partners that have similar problems, that want to solve this problem, such as the carrying meals, and work with them, get feedback from them. Their feedback is sometimes much more valuable than any like B2C customer feedback, because they understand their clients really well. So I just wanted to answer.
Thank you. That's great. Well, actually, I'm going to slide it over to Christian now, because speaking of feedback, I don't know if there's such a thing as typical feedback that you give to innovators, Christian, but maybe you see a common thread that all innovators, there's a common thread that they all, are going through that you've had to deal with.
See, yeah, usually the innovators, when it presents a result, of course, they put a lot of effort there, a lot of R&D, and so the first results is also a great achievement. But then when you see it from the look and feel perspective, the quality perspective, of course, the quality is not there. And usually they feel a little bit, frustrated about this feedback. But indeed, it's just, as I said before, take into account a target material, a very specific, and focused achievement can help to understand a little bit better also the scaling up, the future scaling up of the technology. So take, as Martin said, not too many inputs from so many brands and so from many manufacturers, because sometimes innovators lose their self behind different kind of inputs, so many targets to address the technology, and they lose a lot of time and a lot of effort, So be very specific, be very focused, and be supported by few brands or few manufacturers that trust in your technology. It's not always the case that an innovation can be plug and play. Probably they need, bigger plans, bigger investments, industrial investments, but there are the right ecosystem for your innovation. As Martin said, you have to understand which one of these ecosystem fit to your needs, to your current needs. So if you need an R&D effort to make a step and detach from the lab, try to find the right facilities rather than the first one that come into your path, basically.
Thank you. I wanted to ask you all about performance testing and end of life for the textiles. And performance testing, meaning a couple of things. The first step of performance testing, shedding, abrasion, color fading, the wear and tear kind of thing. And then the other version of performance, which is, is it thermoregulating? Does it provide any warmth, or is it water repellent? Anything like that. So regarding those performance testing standards, so I'll start with you, Arnaud. Did Fleur already pass through those sorts of tests?
So the tests are still happening right now, so I cannot talk a lot about this, but there's something a little bit tricky about this, is that this new line, Fleur, we want it to be with less chemicals. I mean, we promote it like it's dyed naturally, it doesn't contain petrochemicals. So at some point, for instance, we don't want to add some chemical so it becomes fireproof or things like that. So the tests are more about breathability, if it keeps you out of the cold or these things like that, but we don't want it to be too chemical. So as the tests are still going on now, I don't have any specific result to share, but we have this conversation internally about all the chemicals that we want to avoid now, because we are asked that to avoid the chemicals.
Yeah, and your manufacturers, I would assume that they would do the testing for you, or do you have a third party?
We have a third party here.
Okay. And then, so Martin, what about you? As I know, so different end products require different testing. So if you're going to be in the children's market versus, home goods or fashion, you mentioned flame retardant. And so I know that can be a thing with fur. Do you just choose not to be in that industry? I don't know. There's so many regulations for testing, and I'm just wondering how you navigate all of that, or do you pick and choose? Like you just said, Arnaud, like you're going to pick and choose. We choose not to use chemicals, so therefore you probably won't go into certain markets with Fleur, at least not right now anyway. But and so before I let you answer, Martin, I just it's always a struggle to me. It seems like we want performance, right? And we want to be sustainable. So we want a material that's really strong and durable, but then we also want it to be biodegradable or recyclable, and has to be really beautiful. And there's a lot of boxes to check that sometimes they might be in opposition to each other. So yeah, where do you stand on that? Actually, this question is for everyone in terms of the longevity of a product and the end of life, as well as what's really needed. Martin, maybe you could start.
I can just say that as we are a big mill manufacturer, we can adapt to what the brand requests. So this is a good. We are lucky to have this possibility to adapt. For instance, the flame retardancy aspect can be important for home textile, or as you said, the end use of the product is important. Even though we try to avoid it, we have to adapt also for the car industry. There are legislations, as you said. Also, what's interesting, it's a little bit different, that the flame retardancy aspect has been also a source of discussion because it has been criticized for other reasons. They have been linked to chronic health issues, for instance. And the discussion also we can have internally is that the fact that we want to protect consumers from a potential risk, which is a fire, can actually spread health issues for all users. So it's just a way to tell me that we have a lot of internal discussion, even about this concept of flame retardancy. So, but we are lucky that we can adapt our system to the brand requirement.
Mhm. And Martin and so Martin and Caring, so when does Caring test by a Savion, for instance, does it go through like, I don't know if you have shedding tests. I'm not even sure which test you use for fur. I know what other textiles go through, but fur might have its own special tests.
As for we use our internal lab, test and innovation lab, and usually for the routine test, we make tests on color fastness, of course, and all kind of mechanical resistance and so on. Of course, when we talk about development, we make dimensional stability test for washing and exposure to steam. So these are the conventional ones that we make on the materials. Of course, I would like also to highlight the stuff that fiber fur at the end are a specific kind of textile. So, for example, the flammability is not a big issue for us because otherwise we have to stop to use also shirt in cotton or trousers in cotton because they are inflammable. So it's not an issue at all for us. As Arnaud said, in the automotive is compulsory. There are regulations there, but not for the governments. And the durability, of course, for us is key. And in Caring, we talk about intrinsic and extrinsic durability, because the durability is not just a physical one, it's an emotional one. And we are discussing also at a level of a European table, about what is durability, because we know how to run a test to check the durability of a fabric, but what about the product, So there is a big discussion on this topic, because the current definition of durability, it doesn't properly fit with our vision in luxury, where is key, and fit more with a fast fashion perspective, where the durability is not the key asset, in that industry. So it's a very huge topic, this one. Also, if we are talking about products rather than just the materials. So of course, as for the fiber fur, again, they are textile materials. So we just check, the durability of the fabric itself. And then, of course, there is also, we have started to run some tests in terms of microfiber shedding, using the microfiber consortium test methodology, in order to understand if these kind of materials have a more an higher fiber fragmentation rather than other materials. So it's an ongoing discussion, because also this topic is a huge topic that started a few years ago, and we are supporting all the discussion around it, and also different activities on that. So yeah, that durability is key, of course, in the luxury, is expected, I would say.
Yeah, that's great. And Martin, how about you? What is your take on this?
So one of my early mentors in the biomaterials space always said, customers want a material that is completely natural, ideally completely plant-based, performs, looks great, feels great, and the moment you throw the product away, it biodegrades into carbon, oxygen, and other basic elements and goes back into the environment. That's the ideal. Goes back, and that's the ideal, and that's what we're all working on, basically, like creating products with less environmental impact. And coming from the leather space, when you are recreating leather, there's a battery of 12 tests that every material has to go through, and that's a very technical approach. When it comes to fur is such a haptics and visuals are so important for this material. It evokes feelings. The touch and feel of the material are so important to designers, to customers, that when I entered this field, I was like, what are our 12 tests? And people were like, well, if it looks and feels and performs like fur, you're in. I was like,
yeah, that's true also. The look and feel, it's key.
Yeah, so that was my early experience. But yeah, for us, we've worked on flame retardants for the past 2 years intensively, because our material, being completely naturally based on plant fibers, has for certain applications like the interior market requirements to pass flame retardancy tests. And we're really lucky. We're testing now a final candidate that's completely cellulosic. So we're testing, I can't disclose too much about this material, but we're testing now a flame retardant that shows very, very high success rate and holds up during washing and is completely based on a natural material, and therefore safe for children and other interior and plush toy applications. So we're really excited to see the next few development steps.
That's huge, because I can imagine layering on that performance capability of being flame retardant is definitely going to affect haptics, right? It seems very likely that it would affect hand feel, possibly the look as well. So that's a huge thing to tackle. Yeah. There's a question here that I'm going to switch over to, and I want to come back to my other questions, of course, but in the chat from PJ Smith saying, knowing that faux fur fibers are moving towards plant-based, does that include the backing? Also, it would be great to hear about challenges with tariffs around faux furs versus animal-based materials, which that second part of the question is definitely something I'm really interested in as well, which I don't know if any of you have your ear to the ground with what legislations or governments are saying. I know in the US, the New York Fashion Act is hoping it will be voted on by June of this year. The EU rules are already in place and up and running, but I haven't actually read anything about tariffs with faux fur versus animal-based materials. So the questions are faux fur is moving towards plant-based. Does that include the backing? And then any news around tariffs?
What I can say is, for our new product Fleur, the backing is also vegetal. It would not make no sense if it was polyester backing, really. Regarding what's the question? The prices?
Tariffs.
Yeah. I don't have any information about this. I cannot answer this part of the question.
Yeah, no, I know. I keep hoping there will be incentives for around sustainable materials, but I didn't have any information, so I guess you guys don't either.
No.
Okay, so I'm going to switch back to LCAs and other certifications as a follow-up to this whole performance conversation. So, and I'd love to hear from all of you on LCAs. First of all, do the brands who come to you at EcoPel, are they looking for LCAs, or are they looking for other versions of certification to prove sustainability?
No, then they're not looking for LCAs, not that much. They are more looking for like certifications. When it's about recycle, they want the GRS. This kind of certifications are important. LCAs, not that much. I know it's really important to understand the big picture. I'll be honest about it. We never have commissioned any LCAs so far, but there are two very important LCAs that have been done a decade ago, I think. You mentioned them in the report. And obviously they were in favor of faux fur. So because the key is eco-efficiency, something, it's a concept that few people understand, even that if we are a synthetic, we still have more if we are more efficient than animal agriculture. So I know only these two LCAs, they are important, but personally, I mean, at EcoPel level, we have never commissioned any, not yet.
Okay. Martin, how about a biofluff? Are you considering LCAs?
We have, so LCAs for us are pretty important because we are seeking venture money, investor money to grow our business. So one of the first questions our investors are asking us, like, can you prove that your material is better than what's currently on the market?
Mm.
We have been using the tool of LCAs, also called life cycle assessment, which is basically a big model that includes all the input parameters, such as what is the raw material going in, what are the energy requirements going into your material. And this big model then calculates what's the ultimate impact of your material. And we've been using this tool extensively throughout fundraising, but also with brand conversations. So for us, we're repeatedly getting the questions from brands. What is your LCA? How does your LCA look like? Can you show us one? And then the tricky part is usually every brand wants to see a different type of LCA. So there are a lot of standards here. And the problem for us is we've commissioned an early, like an in-house LCA, so to speak, that just shows the material impact of our manufacturing without the supply chain before and after. So we don't know what the customer then does with the material. Do they put it in a bag, in a coat? So we have excluded this from our calculations. But basically, the challenging part is if we would create one LCA, then it's not applicable for every customer. Every customer is asking for a different standard set of LCAs. So it's a really big challenge for us.
Thank you for answering that so thoroughly. It seems, and actually, maybe I'm asking this to the group, but it seems like brands want LCAs from new innovative products, but they don't necessarily require LCAs from the incumbent, like the traditional products.
No, can I start this answer? Yeah, no. For example, when we talk about innovation, we try to ask an LCA from the innovator, but it's not key for us. We need to say also that the approach to LCA is currently a little bit old. It's necessary to have a more holistic approach to LCA because LCA is an analysis that is very specific and you have to compare very specific processing, very specific material, otherwise it's a little bit meaningless. So how can an innovator, mainly a startups, to produce an LCA when sometimes they are not at industrial production level, So specifically talking about fiber fur, we don't ask to Biofluff or to EcoPel an LCA about their plant-based fur because of course it's more sustainable than fur and of course it's more sustainable than synthetic fur, So it's a little bit meaningless to ask data and number on that level, It's the, your know-how, your expertise, the expertise also of the expert in the market, in the synthetic fiber production and so on that tell that is true, As for the comparison between the Biofluff or the EcoPel products compared to the real fur, I saw, just to say, two different LCA commissioned by two different entities in order to compare natural fur, animal fur, and next-gen fur, The result was the opposite. It depends from who commissioned the study. So just to say that sometimes the LCA are not the right parameter, Is your understanding of the environmental topic, of the sustainability, your knowledge in the sustainability field. So I will never ask to Biofluff the LCA because it's obvious. Also, they have a secret fiber component that has less impact of any other kind of possible other fibers, So, I mean, it's not necessary to have exactly in place an LCA. Also, because we have to take in mind that perfection sometimes kills good intention. you know? So I prefer to push an innovation where I assume that there is a positive impact, you know, or a reduction of the impact, environmental impact, rather than to ask them an LCA based on nothing. So this is basically our approach with innovation. Of course, right now is the tool that is the reference tool, but also these tools show a lot of limitation. As Martin say, they took into account a lot of parameters. There is not a standardized way to run it. It depends what you take into account, you know, and what is the comparison, you know, because sometimes with innovation, there is not comparison to other stuff. So the production process is different. The material that come out is totally different. So how you can compare to something else?
Yeah. It sounds as if you have what I would call a common sense approach. It's a very sensible approach.
Absolutely.
Sometimes,
using-
yes, for sure.
Yeah. If you're using plants, it's probably more sustainable than polyester. You know,
It depends also from the plant, but in this case, yes, because Ecopel use hemp, use other fibers. Of course, also in the plant-based, you know, fibers, there are differences. So we take into account this difference too.
That's good. And we only have time for a couple more questions, but I wanted to get back to something you brought up, Martin, a few minutes ago about the emotional appeal of fur. And we actually spend quite a few pages in our report about the emotional appeal and what makes it so magical, and you know, and what are the targets to try to achieve this. And I think that there's so much to be said for, like, you know, the length of the hair, the softness, the silkiness, the curliness, how thick the pile is, et cetera, et cetera. But then we get to color. And I know we already talked briefly about Dyco, the waterless color system that you're using with Ecopel and Caring. But my question for you, Martin, is I know that color, again, the same way when you're adding like a flame retardancy, color can also affect the hand feel, the touch, the look, the fibers. Suddenly they clump together, or they can be separated. Or so how was color? At what point did you decide it's time to tackle color? Because I'm sure for the beginning you're just working on achieving the fiber, right, to get the pile, but then you know you need to add color.
Yeah, it was surprisingly early on. I personally thought that if we could produce white fur, everyone would be happy. I would be happy. I'd be like, that's white fur. That's good enough.
Was Christian happy?
Me, yes. The brand, I don't know. Because we have to take into account the creativity too.
Exactly. And that's what Christian just said. When it comes to creativity, we really aim to inspire creative people with our material. So adding color to so the natural base color of our material is like light beige, beige white. So it's very easy for us to add colors and really create very bright colors with natural dyeing methods. And that's key for us to, Savian wants to inspire, and adding color to our material became necessary very early, as I realized. Because creatives just need to have the freedom of choosing between different colors. We're now also working with different brands on seasonal colors, so we're able to fine-tune the color of our material based on customer needs at the moment. So
well, yeah, you're in a tricky position as the innovator, both from Ecopel and BioFluff. Your job, one of your many jobs, is to inspire the designers, right? And color is a big part of that, you know, as well as hand feel, of course, and hair length and the all that. So it's a big part. We only have a few more minutes left. And I just wanted to add that, or I wanted to ask Martin and Arnaud, are your businesses specializing? Are you focused on any one particular industry, or are you trying to capture several different industries, or one at a time? So when I say industries, for everyone, I mean, you know, there's footwear, the outdoor market, home, fashion, children's wear, toys, auto. So those are the industries I speak of.
I would say that we don't work with fast fashion brands because first of all, it's a question that we have had internally. Should we work with fast fashion brands? Because in a way, it's good to try to help them to become more sustainable. But the other side is that they are super fast fashion, so they are the biggest polluters in the fashion field. So I would say that the only part of the textile segment we will not work with. We like to expand our business with home textile, for instance, because in fashion, you can be very fashionable, and a few years after, you can really flop. There is a cycle in fashion. When you work with home textile brands, for instance, it's a little bit different. People will always buy a cushion, a throw, a blanket. So this is a segment we like to have, and it's still possible to promote sustainable material with this kind of new segment. So for us, it's really positive to expand our business with this kind of segment.
Again, Martin, I'm afraid I'm not going to give you the chance to answer because I realize we're at 1 o'clock now, or my time, 1 o'clock, sorry.
I
And I
want
wanted
to
to,
take
I was too long.
so sorry.
I want to take 10 seconds to address two of the questions here in one go.
Okay.
If you're looking for opportunities, as one of the questions here in the chat, then the MII report is really a treasure trove of current problems that people are trying to solve. So I wish I would have found that earlier. But yeah, go look at the MII report. There are many problems highlighted there. And I guess we don't have time for the second one, but yeah, many good questions here.
Thank you. Thank you. So, merci beaucoup, danke, and grazie mille to everyone.
Thank you.
One last thing before we go, there's going to be something popping up on the screen for the audience. It's a survey. It's because we value your feedback. If you have 2 minutes, if everybody could just give it a look and check off. It's really just, again, we value your feedback on the webinar or anything that we're doing at MII. Thank you all so much. And I'm sorry that I had to cut that short, everyone. And you were all brilliant, and I appreciate your time.
Ciao. Merci
Thank you so
beaucoup.
much.
Ciao.
Yeah.
Have a
Grazie.
good
Ciao.
evening, everyone. Bye.
Ciao, ciao, guys.
Take care.
Au revoir.